I know that Elden Ring came out about 2 years ago or whatever, but it's a game that's still getting headlines for um a rather interesting reason. And I'm pretty sure this is something that's not too surprising to a lot of people, but the game is like way more difficult than it had any business being. And for the most part, it's something that kind of went viral online a couple of days ago. Um, it was reported that that Bandai Namco had revealed that ever since the game was released about 2 years ago, like players had died like over 9 billion times, and I believe it was recently reported like a few days ago that a player had died more than like 2,300 times within 2 to 3 months, beating the game at like level one or something like that. And there are people who are speculating and wondering whether or not that's a good thing. Now, I know that like RPGs are supposed to be challenging, but they're supposed to be fun. If there's something wrong with the game to a point where the difficulty curve is too high, um a lot of people feel like that's something that can easily drive off casuals in terms of the game's overall appeal. But the thing is, despite how difficult Elden Ring is, the game actually has earned a tremendous profit since its release 2 years ago. I believe the game had like an operating profit of around 91 million. And the game has managed to sell over 23 million copies since its release back in February of 2022. And the thing is, I mean, more RPGs need to be challenging because I think it adds to its replay value. And on top of that, Elden Ring has like six different endings. So the replay value on that game is really high. But the thing is, I mean, I don't think, there are too many people who would go out of their way to take that kind of time to master that game. But at the same time, I also feel like it's one of those deals where you have to like really be like a hardcore fan of RPGs in general to be a fan of that game. And the thing is, like Elden Ring, I believe ended up being like the top RPG of 2022. And rightfully so, because 2022 was pretty much like a slow, somewhat dead year in relation to video game releases because there was really no high profile video games that came out in 2022 that I can really think of off the top of my head in relation to the RPG genre. Now, you look at games like Elden Ring, and then you look at the games that we got this past year. I'm not exactly sure how Elden Ring would have stood up against to Baldur's Gate 3 because that ended up being like the RPG of 2023. And you look at games like Final Fantasy 16. That's a game that people said was solid, but at the same time, it's been a commercial failure. I think. Final Fantasy 16 is actually a relatively easy game to get through in comparison to Elden Ring, and that's quite possibly one of the reasons why it was like a flash in the pan type of thing in relation to popularity. And like right now, a lot of people aren't really talking about Final Fantasy 16, and Square Enix even admitted that the game was a commercial failure. Elden Ring, on the other hand, is actually a massive commercial success, and it's still something that people are talking about to this day. And I honestly feel like the game itself, I do feel that the difficulty level in this RPG is kind of unreasonable, but at the same time it's something that helps the overall quality of the game itself. And I'm not exactly sure whether or not there's going to be a sequel to this or if we're going to get one anytime soon. But yeah, Elden Ring, I do feel is one that's still making headlines, and I do feel that the game itself is okay just the way that it is. Um, I do feel that Elden Ring, for the most part, it's something that a lot of people can look at and be like, something, it's gonna stand a test of time, years from now. And I do feel that it's something that Bandai Namco is still gonna be making money off of, like about 3 or 4 years from now as well. But I hate to say it, but I feel like more RPGs kind of have to be like this. They have to be intriguing, have an interesting story, have to have like a slightly difficult, learning curve to a point where people can become emotionally invested in the game. And I guess like the amount of hours of gameplay they can get out of is insane. And like with the main story, you can get around like 59, 60 hours. Now, if you do like every aspect of the game, talk about side quests and NPC interactions and stuff like that, you can get like roughly around 140 hours of, I guess, gameplay overall. Or if you're just really like, bad at the game, you could probably get like a year's worth of gameplay out of Elden Ring. Either way, it's still a pretty solid RPG, and I do feel like the RPG genre in general is going to remain popular throughout the 2020s decade.